One of the big questions is, what is money?
For practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, very different databases.
Do you believe in crypto?
Digital currency may be an answer, but it is the highly speculative asset.
I do own Bitcoin.
There is no second best.
Welcome to the Crypto Curious podcast. We usually break down the biggest stories in crypto, but today we're switching things up with a very special guest, bringing fresh insights from the industry. Whether you're new to crypto or a seasoned pro, we've got something for you, so let's dive in.
Joining us today, we have Kyle Stagoll, also known as Daxx, and he's the founder of Market Mastery, Australia's leading community for crypto traders with 36,000 people members. Is that right?
Well, 37.4.
37,000 now. And you have years of experience in the space, very well known, and it's great to have you here to break down what's happening in the crypto world.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for having me, guys.
All good, yeah. So we got some really good feedback. I had a chat with you last year at the CryptoCon. It'd be good to sort of get your sense on where you think we are in the cycle right now. Obviously, Trump's in, Bitcoin strategic reserves being talking about, but the price is horrendous. So where do you think we are? Like we had a debate last week, actually, all the meme coins launching. We're feeling a little bit nervous. It's like the top signal that we all know and love. So it'd be good to get your thoughts. Where do you think we're at?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things to be thinking about, like everybody just looks at crypto and Bitcoin and they're like, oh, the halving was last year. Why aren't we pumping? But they're not taking into account where we are in the global macro space, right? We're still in a tightening phase. That means the central banks are taking liquidity out of the entire economy. So it's very difficult for things that are low cap stocks or cryptos like altcoins, which are basically low cap stocks, let's be honest, to pump and do really well in this type of environment. I think that's why this cycle is actually going to go a bit longer than most people think, and we're going to be a bit more drawn out. And yeah, you said the price is horrendous. Well, Bitcoin's at like just under 100K right now. For me, that's not too horrendous, but altcoins have been absolutely decimated. So it's sort of mirroring very similar to what we're seeing in the stock market with the Magnificent Seven. And then, you got Palantir and MicroStrategy obviously doing really well. Coinbase has done really well. But outside of that, not very many stocks have done very well, right? So the Mag 7 in NVIDIA have just dragged everything up. And it's sort of same in crypto, like Bitcoin's dragged everything up with the ETF news and all that sort of stuff. So the only real movement we've had this cycle has been from pure adoption. We haven't had any movement, which is what usually moves crypto, especially if you look at the last couple of cycles. It's all come from the macroeconomic landscape of massive amounts of liquidity, COVID, right? They printed 40% of all USD in a couple of years. Right, so huge liquidity injections versus this cycle, at the time we're in right now in this current cycle, they're sucking $2 trillion out of the economy. So how the hell are altcoins going to pump like crazy when they're taking $2 trillion out versus putting trillions of dollars into the economy?
Yeah, and that's is really compounded by high interest rates. People don't have the disposable income that they used to have to be able to speculate or invest or even save because it's been chewed up through their home loan or their car loan or credit card debt. Savings rates are at an all-time low. And yeah, hopefully that's about to change in the coming months.
It's really interesting that you mentioned before about the liquidity event. This morning, there was a story that came out that Elon and Trump want to give $5,000 to everyone that is a taxpayer with the $2 trillion of saving with DOGE. Do you think these sort of liquidity events are coming? And you think that you're pretty much saying the show hasn't really started yet?
Yeah, I don't think so, for sure. Like if you look at the manufacturing index that we follow, which is the ISM, that only just crossed over 50. And if you look at the lead ISM, which is new orders for next month, etc., that's actually pushing up now. First time it's really pushed up properly above 50 since it entered into a bear market, which was March in 2021. Basically, manufacturing, which is what we use to measure the ISM chart, is what we use to measure the business cycle. So that's been basically in a bear market and topped in March 2021. And we all know crypto ended up having that extra push, probably thanks to Sam Bankman-Fried, and Solana had its final run and all that sort of stuff. We ended up topping. And then the Federal Reserve on the 10th of November 2021, they announced we're going to move into a tightening phase again from being in quantitative easing. So I think most people don't understand how much macro actually plays into account what happens in the crypto market, and they think everything is just the 4-year cycles are all just based around the Bitcoin halving, where it's actually the Bitcoin halving, which removes supply, but then you also need the demand side, which comes from the business cycle, that comes from easing of financial conditions, whereas we're still in a very tightening of financial conditionings regime right now.
Yeah. There's a couple really key differences about this cycle compared to other cycles. We've seen the ETFs come to market, which has brought substantial inflows. We've seen Saylor buying up billions of dollars, but also the Trump administration. So do you want to talk about how that is going to impact the market?
Massively. I think this is actually extremely undercooked right now, and I don't think it's priced in. I honestly believe that Bitcoin can run, if we go back into an easing phase where they turn on QE eventually and they start to really drop interest rates over the next couple of years, and the US government starts buying 200,000 Bitcoin every single year, and also they just put Howard Lutnick in charge of the US sovereign wealth fund that they're building. He owns Cantor Fitzgerald. He's basically the next biggest Bitcoin bull on the planet after Michael Saylor. And he's just being put in charge of the US sovereign wealth fund. It's like, what do you think he's going to do? Like, Cantor Fitzgerald are pioneering like Bitcoin technology in the financial system, like using Bitcoin is in traditional finance as like a borrowing lending tool. So like you can get basically like a mortgage instead of against a house, against your Bitcoin holdings, right? No one else is really doing that outside of like the crypto space, like in actual TradFi. And so he's going to be taking over where the US is going to be investing their money. Where do you think he's going to put it?
It's a good point. And I'm going to be devil's advocate here because you're mentioning things around like institutional adoption. I totally get that. But I want to get your take on the Trump meme coin that onboarded millions of new users in literally one day. Like that is Argentinian meme coin, Dave Portnoy. Like name a celebrity, they've probably posted a contract address. Like, do you think that the retail mania blow off tops that we've seen in previous cycles are maybe not now the top signals of this cycle?
Yeah. So if we had have got this when the business cycle ISM was peaking and not literally just going, when it ticks over 50, it means it's going back into growth for the first time, right? So if we were much higher and we'd been above 50 for a year or 2 years, I'd be like, okay, that's top signal. But because we're moving into the phase of the economic cycle where people start to have money again and people start to feel rich and have the wealth effect, it's like the tide, right? So when the tide goes out and things like this start happening with all the scam coins, etc., that's when you need to be worried. But we're in the moment of the cycle, of the entire economic cycle, business cycle, presidential cycle, where the tide is just starting to come back in. So I think you have to overlook stuff like that. And I'm seeing it more to be like, in previous cycles, usually DOGE would move first and then get all the boys on site talking, oh, mate, Jono made this much off Doge coin. You got to get into crypto, bro. And then people start talking about how much money they're making from these meme coins. And then that brings more people into the ecosystem. And then after that, maybe they make some money, maybe they lose some money. And then they start looking more into the different coins. They start looking into the quality like Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum. And they actually start to research, they move into the industry for the first time. And a lot of the time people come in through meme coins and then they stay because they actually start to research into it and realize how amazing this entire industry is. And then they get hooked.
You might have just noticed there that Daxx looked at me and laughed as he said Ethereum because he knows I'm an Ethereum maxi. And I did tell him before the show, don't FUD Ethereum too much. But while we're on it, give me your sort of Ethereum. It's number 2. It's got an ETF. There's rumors of Eric Trump's pumping it. I know you're a Solana bull, but what's happening with Ethereum? I was discussing today in the office. Like, it's almost like someone like that we don't know of, Celsius or Athena or whatever it is suppressing ETH because it's just ridiculously
conspiracy
bullish fundamentally, but it's just can't move. What's happening? What's your thought?
Well, personally, I don't think it's that bullish fundamentally. I think ETH is... I always thought ETH is going to have a terrible cycle this cycle. And so far, that's been on the money. But I do think eventually it will have a catch-up run towards the end of the cycle and it will pump really hard and maybe gets to 8,000 or 10,000 or something like that. That's why I never was really that keen to be holding it because max you probably only get like a 3 to 5x. Whereas I could just hold Bitcoin and it's way better trade, or I could put it in Solana and get like a 30,000x this cycle. So, with ETH, I got burnt really badly buying some NFTs when they first got released, and I paid $5,500 for a transaction for gas fees. And I was just like, this doesn't work. And then like every other time you use it, you're paying $250 or something like that. Then you've got all these layer 2s and you got to cross around between them. And like the user experience is just horrific. And so like, I'm like a crypto OG, right? I've been in since very early 2017. Well, that's an OG these days, but I've been around for a while. And so if, for example, if I'm not really enjoying the experience using Ethereum, in fact, I hate it. It makes me feel sick every time I use it. I want to throw my computer out the window. So like, how are you going to get new people coming into the ecosystem being like, yeah, let's do this. I'm going to, wormhole this. And I'm going to, bridge this. And it's just too annoying. And I just think that like, whatever has the least amount of friction wins, right? That's why crypto wins versus an international transaction using Swift. It's a pain in the ass using your banking system. Whereas you send Bitcoin or USDT, bang, it's instant anywhere in the world. And so it's the same reason why Solana is winning against Ethereum at the moment, because it's so much less friction. It's easy to use. Phantom Wallet's great. And I think that's why it's winning, because it's fast. It only costs a couple of cents to send a transaction. But I think Ethereum, what will happen over time. So one of my friends is a developer and he made the game Pirate Nation. And this is some epic alpha if anybody wants it. These guys also built the proof of play blockchain, and they're one of the highest MGAS users at the moment of all of Ethereum. I think they have 3 chains now, but their two main chains are the 2 top gas chains at the moment on Ethereum. And they're going to release proof of play, I think, sometime this year. I think that's going to be one of the best plays of this cycle, because I think it's going to end up taking over the whole gaming industry for Web3. It's an amazing project. So I think people should do a bit of research into that one.
Yeah, gaming is definitely lagging, so it'd be great to see some innovation there.
We need a gaming cycle for sure.
I think gaming's we've spoken about for the last since 2017. Gaming,
it's never taken off.
It's never quite happened yet.
One day it will, but
it did have a really strong pump at one point last cycle. Do you remember Star Atlas?
Yeah,
Luvian pumped really hard.
Yeah, off the trailers.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's actually things are happening. It's not too good. But I think this sort of stuff is the sort of stuff that does well later on in the business cycle. It's the same with NFTs, right? And, low cap stocks and stuff like that. Like they peak towards the end of the cycle. So like I'm talking end of this year, end of next year. If anyone wants to jump on Y charts or jump on, I think Macro Micro have a good chart. Just Google ISM Manufacturing Index and have a look at the chart, and then match that up with the Bitcoin chart. And you'll see typically when the ISM crosses over 50, crypto and Bitcoin is going sideways at that time, and altcoins are absolutely just in the toilet. But then what happens a few months later, that liquidity starts to flow through the rest of the economy. Bitcoin starts to pick up. Altcoins start to pick up a little bit after.
So let's just dive back into the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this. The US has a new advisory committee to discuss how they're going to do this, as well as other crypto regulation. Polymarket has this as a 45% chance, which is middle ground. What are your thoughts on that? And, is it going to happen this year? Because these are complicated things. It's not things that they can just click their fingers and make happen.
So they're definitely going to do everything they can to push it through. I think Trump definitely wants it. Obviously, Elon wants it. Robert Kennedy Jr. wants it. Vivek Ramaswamy wants it. So like all the core people that are part of the Trump team are very big Bitcoin, very big crypto. I think they're just trying to put everything in place before they release that sort of stuff. And also, like, we all know that politicians love a little bit of insider trading, right?
They need time to get in.
Insider trading on chain.
I mean, how can you prove, like, if everyone in Trump's family starts buying heaps of Bitcoin and then they release it, how do you prove that? Why could they not want to buy Bitcoin for the last 6 months?
Sometimes it feels like we're so in the weeds that it's like, is this actually happening? And like what I said before, like the price is horrendous. And then you zoom out, you're like, hold on, we're like 3.5 trillion market cap. Bitcoin's almost 100. But kind of bringing it back to you and what you do. So you've helped build one of Australia's like premier trading communities. How do you see trading? I've always been terrible at it. I think you're pretty bad at it.
Okay, well, speak for yourself. No, I don't trade.
You don't trade?
No.
So we're all about dollar cost averaging here. Talk about the relationship that you would like between trading and dollar cost averaging that you'd recommend to someone that's listening to this podcast, obviously a newbie, trying to educate themselves.
Yeah.
How would you sort of recommend a balance?
Yeah, so basically DCAing any low IQ person can do that, right? No offense. So once you know what to do with trading, right, you just replace a couple of, 15-minute sessions a day instead of doom scrolling on Instagram or YouTubing, looking at the charts, chatting to people in a Discord community, seeing what everyone's looking at, stuff like that. Like we have an indicator system which basically gives you an alert to your phone that pops up like when you get a text message being like, hey, there's a high probability of reversal right now. And so like I'm here chatting with you guys today. Like I entered a trade, I think 2 days ago. It's up like $6,000 right now, right? So it's like I do those small swing trades and I'm usually trying to make anywhere from 5 to 20K off one of those swing trades. And then I'll take that and then I'll buy some more Solana or Sui or Bitcoin. And so I do that every time there's a really obvious setup because I think it's just, you're just leaving so much free cash on the table. Like if you know what you're doing, like actually, you know exactly the setup that you want to be looking for. So I like to look for a pin bar, moves into a Morningstar reversal off a key long-term VWAP level.
You just listed off 3 things that I don't even think we know.
Yeah. These are very technical things, and you're a technical trader. There's different sorts of traders. There's fundamental traders, there's long-term investors, and there's technical traders, and you're definitely on the technical side.
Yeah.
Do you ever pull fundamentals into that, or it's just on the technical side?
Yeah, so my fundamentals are more macro. So like I have an economics background from university. So for me, like basically you have Bitcoin and then you have a couple of maybe top coins like Solana, Ethereum, Sui, etc. like that. Throw in DOGE and a couple of others in the top 10, 20 right now. But then all the other altcoins are almost one trade. Yeah, they're so highly correlated. And then especially, if you're trading, you lose a little bit of leverage. You can match those massive outperformers. And then I've got really good people around me that are amazing fundamental researchers, like Nuggets and his whole crew, chatting to those guys all the time about new projects that they love. Then we've got one of the girls in our team, Black Widow. She just turned 17K into 500K in the last year and a half. And she does really deep research into everything. She's absolutely crushed it. So we gave her, won the award. So when our traders hit like 500K or $1 million, we give them an award, like a plaque hang on their wall. So she got her award the other day, and then we decided to give her own channel in our Discord group. I sort of have my fundamentals covered by that. But for me, fundamentals are less about the actual project itself, but more about the economy wide, because that's why I have enough confidence to be very heavy in Bitcoin for majority of the cycle. And then when I see the economic factors coming in that we've just been talking about before, and we say, okay, altcoins are about to take off. Now I start rotating more heavily into altcoins. Then I play those swings, rotate back into BTC. Last cycle I did that. I had one just account. I was just only trading off my phone every now and then on a separate Binance account. And I turned 2 Bitcoin into 16 Bitcoin by the end of the cycle, a little bit of phone trading here and there, just timing the altcoin swings. If I just held those 2 Bitcoin the entire cycle versus building that bag from 2 into 16, like it's a big difference.
But there's also a risk that you could, if I was doing it, I'd probably lose 2 Bitcoin.
But you just have to get educated. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's why we have our course, because it teaches people the exact things that they need to be looking at. Like I listed off all these technical terms just before, but to be honest, all you're looking for is a candle that goes down and goes back up and closes with a wick on a line that our technology draws on the chart for you. Like it's actually really simple.
Yeah, I think that really leads in well to like, what are the biggest mistakes that you see traders make in your community, but also outside your community?
Yeah, so basically the number one mistake that takes people out of this game, whether they're DCA type or they're trading type or whatever, is that they use too much leverage and they're trying to make too much money too quick. And they also have like a small account. So I teach people also to DCA. Like DCAing is part of our strategy. It's just like we DCA, it's like the base level thing that you do. And then you also swing trade on top of that. We also rotate through altcoins at the right time because we're trying to outperform the market. So like the HODL strategy, it works, but the problem with the HODL strategy is like, if you don't know how to trade, how do you know when to sell? If you don't understand macroeconomics, how can you sell the all-time high? Like, I'm not sure if you guys know, but I posted 2 days after the all-time high was in and alerted all my group and all my members. And a lot of the guys are now millionaires and some multi-millionaires in the group. I'm not claiming it was just all me, but because I alerted, hey, everybody, this looks like it's probably the all-time high on Bitcoin, and then a few days later on Ethereum. And a few of them have even said, we've got the screenshots, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Have even said, hey, thanks for sharing that ETH top call because I sold my bag. And instead of round tripping, I've now turned that into a 7-figure account from 10K in 2018. So knowing how to trade and understanding macro enables you to sell your DCA bags at the right time. If you've got a couple $100,000 you've been DCAing for a while, instead of just round tripping all your altcoins, because altcoins a lot of the time, they don't bounce again. They only have one cycle, most of them. And then also you don't want to be rotating, holding Bitcoin from 16K to maybe 250K all the way back down to 80K again. Or, last cycle, 3K to 69K back to 16, when you can sell, triple your bag on the way down. And the next time you go back up, that's how we're printing millionaires in our group, because playing and understanding those cycles and selling at the right time is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I guess talking about cycles is probably a good time to talk about where we are in the cycle right now. Obviously, we've had a huge run, Bitcoin all-time high, 100K, but only really a few old 2017 memes or 2017 old coins coming back. So where do you think we are right now? What things should we be looking at for the next few months?
Particularly trends, I think.
Particularly trends, yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, the main trend that people need to be looking at is more macroeconomic stuff, because that's going to decide, okay, if Bitcoin this cycle ends up going to 500K or if it tops out at 150, it's all going to be down to what the Federal Reserve does. Okay, how quickly do they start lowering interest rates? The other main trends are going to be like, okay, do they end up passing the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve? I think very likely is going to happen. What Howard Lutnick does when he gets in power, well, he's already in power, but when they start getting the Sovereign Wealth Fund up and running. And then the next steps, which is what happens with Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. When his term is due, I think in June or July, Trump's going to put somebody in who basically is going to do whatever he says, let's be honest, which is going to be lower interest rates, weaken the dollar. So the main thing I think people need to watch, if you're just on TradingView, just get up the DXY chart. When DXY is in a downtrend, that means global liquidity is going up.
Just for the listeners, what's the DXY and TradingView?
Okay, guys, number one thing, if you want to make money out of crypto, you have to be on TradingView. Get a TradingView account. You can get a free account, right? But yeah, for the guys that are a little bit more advanced, they want to look at this sort of data and actually be able to predict, hey, altcoins are going to start running here. I need to be following up on altcoins. The things you need to be looking at is the DXY, which is the US dollar strength. So when the US dollar becomes weaker, which is what Trump wants to do, because that boosts exports in the US, right? Helps US business. And he did the same thing in 2017. And that's why we had the amazing, probably one of the best bull runs of all time.
That was so fun.
Across any industry, any bull run ever, right? So DXY down, ISM up is what you want to be looking for. So manufacturing getting stronger and
You
going
love the
up.
manufacturing one, don't you?
It's the key, mate.
That's the key. I've never heard that before. So that's that's alpha.
Are there any other tools or resources that you rely upon to stay ahead of the market that potentially our listeners could leverage apart from TradingView and some of these metrics that you've mentioned?
CoinGecko is really good just to look at market caps. I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially when they're investing into coins that have been around for one cycle, a lot of the time they're like, oh, the price is really low. So when it goes back to all-time high, I'll make X amount. But it's been diluted a lot over that market cycle that it's been through by the team. And so there's a ridiculous amount more tokens in the ecosystem which are ready to be dumped and be sold off. So that coin's probably not going back to its all-time high. So unless something really significant has happened with the team has been using the money that they've been dumping into the market by liquidating the tokens that they have in their treasuries, been using that money to actually build something. So Solana is a great example. It went all the way up to 260, came back to $8, but then obviously they built massively and then they had the whole meme coin phase and everything like that. So it was actually being used. So you need to be looking, okay, is my coin that's been liquidated by the team over the last cycle, can it possibly go back to all-time high or not? Because have that team actually done enough to bring value into that project, right? That's a massive one. So go into CoinGecko and look at the market cap versus the price. And that will, you look at those two charts, it will be very, very obvious. Token unlocks is a really good one as well to look at.
Yeah, we'll just talk to the audience. Token unlock is potentially a vesting period that comes to an end from VCs or projects themselves to fund themselves. And Solana has a couple coming up, right?
I think it's like 98% unlocked.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd have to double check.
You're funning.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I heard saying that there's a couple 100 mil tokens being unlocked.
Nah, that was, no. Because so if you go to tokenunlocks.com, you can just look at it for yourself. Yeah. So I actually did that. And I was like, hang on a second, I'm pretty sure this is all almost completely unlocked. Right. And so I went and jumped on and I'm like, that's like 98% unlocked.
There you go.
This is a problem with like crypto Twitter and stuff like that. There's so many people on there that just don't know what they're doing. And they've been around since the early days and they all got huge followings because maybe they got lucky and maybe they have like a lot of Bitcoin or something like that from the early days. And they might be trading big size, but a lot of them like are always wrong. So I think the most important thing you need to do when you're thinking about who you're going to follow online is that they need to be consistently correct. And like without like, pull myself off or anything like that. Like I've been very correct for a long period of time. That's just something you can't fake.
Now, there's one topic that I'd want to touch on that I think we brushed over. We touched on it, but we can go a little bit deeper that I find interesting. So DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, they're going to cut $1 to $2 trillion this financial year for the US. Does this budget reduction stimulate the economy enough to spur a bull run? Because they'll be printing less money.
Obviously, they're trying to reduce the deficit, which I think would be bullish for America in general. We actually start to take a chip away at that deficit. And then it's like, what do they do with the extra money? Do they just save it? Do they put it in a sovereign wealth fund and try and build something from that? That's going to be some more trends for us to watch. Like a lot of them are saying there's like this whole thing about Fort Knox and everything like that.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
The gold's not really there and all this sort of stuff. So, it's going to be really interesting, all this stuff that they're working on at the moment. Do they end up giving away the $5,000 to everybody? Because obviously that's basically QE, right?
Yeah, that's QE.
So like, okay, we save all this money by eliminating all this government fraud and giving ridiculous...
Yeah, brings down inflation.
I was just saying before that, unironically, that's probably bullish for Doge because if everyone gets 5K
from Doge.
Go buy Dogecoin.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
funny.
Can't rule it out.
All right, well, this is kind of an interesting one that's a bit off topic and a bit of a fun one. Have you heard about the rumors that Jack Dorsey being Satoshi?
One of my friends asked me this morning. I hadn't seen it yet online, but yeah, I don't think so. I mean, obviously he's like pretty big into Bitcoin and he's, very savvy tech guy, but I really think it's Hal Finney. I really think it's
Well, I used to think it was Hal Finney, but he has an alibi. He ran a marathon at the same time that Satoshi did a post on Bitcoin Talk. So that was that was my theory. But you know what? It's probably
a group of people.
or maybe it's Hal and he's done something.
Playing tricks.
Yeah, playing tricks. Who knows?
Good alibi.
Preset the post to post while he's running a marathon, doing something public.
Exactly.
I mean, the big one is obviously he had that really horrific degenerative disease and then ended up dying. And then Satoshi disappeared at the same time. So it's like, and he was also the first person to receive a Bitcoin transaction. So it's like, I don't know, big coincidence. Plus, obviously, he had all the prerequisites that you would need to be Satoshi, cryptographer, part of the cypherpunks, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I'd like to believe it's him. I'd be annoyed if it was Jack Dorsey because...
I would be annoyed that he got away with it for so long. Do you know what I mean? Crazy.
So is there anything else you want to cover off on the pod? Anything you want to discuss before we finish up?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say to everybody, especially as crypto becomes more advanced and becomes more of a global asset, you really need to understand how macroeconomics works if you want to win in this game continuously into the future. Because I feel like this cycle... so many people are currently getting wrecked and they're going to get wrecked even worse because they're expecting to just play out like previous cycles. And I just think this one's going to be a lot different. And I think people are going to be starting to sell way too early and then its price will continue to pump later as things like we've talked about, the business cycle starts to pick up and we get that wave of liquidity come through. And people, if you don't understand how that works, you just offside the market all the time. I think that's because I have my economics background. I think that's how I've been able to be fairly accurate over the years. Like most people don't even know why the market cycle topped in 2017 and why it topped in 2021. A lot of people are like, oh, it's because celebrity memes or because CME launched in 2017. It's like, okay, those were part of the factors, but the real reason was that the Federal Reserve went from quantitative easing to quantitative tightening both times we put in an all-time high. And most people just do not even understand that. So it's like, if you don't understand that, how are you going to pick the top next time? How are you going to sell at the right time? And I think selling in crypto is the most important thing. Because you can buy in crypto basically, you get a 3-year period. You can buy and you probably make money, right? Unless you're betting on some terrible altcoins, you're playing the meme coin market or something like that, right? But the major projects, the top altcoins and Bitcoin, if you buy any of those, basically cost 3 years, you're going to be in profit for a fair amount of time. But what happens is people buy and they just hold, the top gets put in. You have a massively obvious shift in financial regime.
They buy more.
They buy more from being in, an easing phase into a tightening phase. When we're in an easing phase, everything pumps. When we're in tightening phase, everything pulls back, right? And so if you don't understand that and you're still buying because you're like, oh, the dips, we're dipping. Everyone's like, buy the dip. But the Federal Reserve's gone across to QT again, which is exactly what happened in 2021, 2022. And everyone's like, buy the dip. But it's like, well, no, they're taking $2 trillion out of the economy. It's not going to bounce. I think that's the meme that everybody always says, like, oh, the dip that kept on dipping. And then it's like, the guy with the gun behind the gun, the dippity dip. And that happens and everybody eventually gets wrecked. And then, you always hear those stories. Oh, my mate had 250 grand in crypto. Oh, my mate had $1 million in crypto and now it's only worth 50 grand. It's too risky. That's because those people didn't understand the macroeconomic landscape that they were investing into. And if you want to be successful as a DCAer, if you want to be a successful investor in the stock market, in crypto, if you want to be a successful trader, the way that you DCA, the way that you trade, the way that you do everything needs to be reflected by what's going on in the financial regime. Are we in tightening phase or are we in expansion phase, easing phase? And I think if people can get that through their heads, that's probably the best little piece of advice I can give anyone that will literally change the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. So where can we find you, or where can the audience find you for more information? We'll leave some info in the show notes, but
probably best place to find me is on Instagram, where I post the most, just Kyle Stagoll. And then our website is marketmastery.io. So you can check us out there. And then we have a Facebook community as well, that, you know, the one that has 37.4, not 36,000 people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called Crypto Market Mastery. So you can search it on Google, it should come up, or search it on Facebook and it should come up. And yeah, that group's totally free, but you can get access to that. Otherwise, if you want to join our paid community, where me and I have 6 other coaches that post all our trades, all our ideas, and then we have an education course as well, which teaches basically everything you need to know about macro, about trade setups, about Bitcoin, how it all works, why the cycles play out, how to identify what the whales are doing when we're in accumulation or distribution. You know, those sort of things, and then match that up with the macroeconomic landscape so you can make really solid high time frame and low time frame decisions to make actual money out of these markets, and they're just buying stuff and then holding it all the way back down. So we have a course that teaches all that. And then we also have our indicator set as well, which if you're somebody that works a job still and you don't want to quit your job to be a full-time trader, which is totally understandable, most people don't, until you become a multi-millionaire. But we have a system that basically sends an alert to your phone when there's a high probability of reversal. So you can use that, then you jump on the computer or you look at your phone, and if it's a trade you want to take, then you can take it. We also have an AI auto trading program. I didn't actually code this myself. Partnered with some guys that run that, and that's been going really well for a lot of our members. We have close to $1.5 million AUD in our community in that. So yeah, people that are a part of our community, they get access to that through our partnership with AI Wealth Pro as well.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point in the future.
Too easy, guys.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Mate.
Cheers for that.
Cheers, guys.